Greetings, YouTube. Cloves. Nutmeg. I only have the ground variety at the moment. Cinnamon. And of course, peppercorns. These are all included in the book Spice. The History of Temptation by Jack Turner. And this book covers not just the spices themselves, the chemicals, what they do, why we like them, the plants, how they've evolved, things like that. It covers the places that they came from. It covers the people that wanted them, the people that had them, the myths that grew up around them, and how we as human beings have used them in many different ways. That the temptation and drive for the spices was as important, if not more important, than the spices themselves. And they became pervasive, even to the point where they were considered to be undermining the sanctity of monasteries with their devilish ability to pull in a person to the sensual nature of taste and flavor and the eating experience in a way that was considered anathema to the austerity of a monastery. Now, there have been arguments that the Great Age of Exploration was driven by spice, and I think there's something to be said for that, but it's not completely. Because while Columbus came here, he failed miserably in acquiring spices. None of the things that he was looking for are present on the North American continent. But he did find peppers, chilies, which really weren't appreciated in his lifetime, but of course are far, far more hot and spicy than peppercorns. But as far as his ability to bring back the bacon, so to speak, it was a miserable failure. That was his job, and he didn't do it. He thought he got to the place where there were going to be all kinds of spices, and he didn't get there. Though, again, he didn't really appreciate chilies for what they were. He did, of course, open up the whole idea, the whole world to the markets of, the cocoa bean and tobacco, of course. The book also touches on the medicinal uses of spice. Then there are some real medicinal uses of spice, and then there are all the purported uses of spice. And related to the medicinal uses of spice are the uses of spice as aphrodisiacs, for helping the lagging male, for inciting passion in a woman. And of course, those, for the most part, have nothing to do with reality whatsoever, beyond the fact that, again, some of them do have some mildly medicinal elements to them. But that didn't stop. I mean, people are slaughtering rhinos to grind up their horns, which is nothing but compressed hair, because they believe that the horns will help with their virility, because it's a hard, phallic-shaped object. And it also dealt with, in the book, also deals with how spices are used in ecclesiastical processes. Have you ever been to a Catholic ceremony where they're burning spices in a censer to give the air of the holy? Well, if you go back to the pagan era, that was part and parcel of the religious rites. You burned those spices to send a message to the gods. It was a direct connection between us in an act that we could produce and the gods themselves, who were then taking in that smoke, the gases given off by burning the spices. So spices have been vastly important to humanity, and they still are, though much less so. I mean, this jar of peppers, which I bought last week, I think cost me $7. There was a time when a single kernel could have cost the equivalent of that, because they were so rare. I mean, and the myths that grew up around these spices, how they were always further away. And as the world got smaller and smaller and smaller, those myths began to fade till, of course, they went away completely. And I think that in many ways we lost something when those myths finally disappeared. That when the lands of the spices were way far away, that was magic. And the world could use a little bit more of that. When, the ancient Orient was a mysterious and nebulous concept as opposed to a point on the map. And of course, the spices did help land trade passing through the Middle East. It did help exploration. And as we made better trade routes, the mystery went away, the prices dropped, and the fortunes that were made on spices fell and collapsed in many ways. But of course, the smart ones that had made their money still had it. I apologize for the noise outside. Apparently, it's a prime time to be doing lawn work. But I definitely think that the book Spice was well worth my time. It was interesting. It has some nice picture plates in here. It deals with the full range of everything you could possibly want to know about spices. And it covered, and even though it's labeled history, I really think that this could fall under nature or biology or even psychology or sociology, because it covers all those topics. This is a book that touches on a whole lot of things. I really enjoyed the read. It was well written. It was an enjoyable process. The author's style is pleasant to read. I encounter a lot of books that are a little difficult to work through, even though the topic's interesting. This was not one of them. This was a nice read. I enjoyed myself. He knows how to turn a good phrase. So I definitely recommend the book Spice, particularly if you are a student of history and an appreciator of the culinary arts.